In this video, I'm going to show you how I went from not being able to drift to getting into the top 1% on the drift zones, creating your own drift build and tuning your own cars.
You have arrived at your destination.
The cars I'm going to be using are the 2005 BMW M3, the 1965 HOONIGAN Ford HOONICORN Mustang, and the 2006 Formula Drift No. 43 Dodge Viper SRT10. And the reason for picking three different cars is the 2005 BMW M3 is our learner car, and our HOONIGAN HOONICORN Mustang is an alternative to the No. 43 Dodge Viper SRT10 because not everybody owns the Formula Drift Pack. When I first started playing Forza Horizon 3, I wasn't very good at drifting, and for the past few days all I've been doing is learning how to drift, how to master the drift zones. And once I got my head around it, it is really easy. So, the 2005 BMW M3 has had everything upgraded in the upgrade shop to race. Platform and handling has had everything upgraded to race, except for springs and dampers. That has been upgraded to drift. I've put on the full Rocket Bunny body kit. I've boosted its aspiration with a positive displacement supercharger. I've left the drivetrain at rear wheel drive. And for the engine, I've put in a 6.2 litre V8. For tyres, upgrade that to the street tyre compound. For the front tyres, I've gone with a 255mm tyre width, just sitting there in the middle. Rear tyre width, I have maxed it out to 325mm. You can do whatever you want with the rim styles, it doesn't make a difference. Now here comes the interesting bit with tuning. The tunes that I'm going to show you for these three cars are all base builds. I really didn't want to go down that path of go and download my tune like other YouTubers do. What I want to do is I want to show you how to set up your base tune, and then you can tailor it to your own needs and specifications. So for the tyre pressure, I'll set it to 27.5 front and 27.5 rear. Gearing I will come on to after we've done the rest of the setup. In alignment, you want to keep the front and rear cambers negative. Front camber needs to be anywhere between -3 and -5. And rear camber needs to be anywhere between -0.5 and -2. For toe, you need to keep the front in a positive, and the more positive the toe, the more angle it allows you to achieve. But if you go ridiculous with that positive toe, it will slow the car down. For the rear toe, stick it anywhere from 0 to -0.5, and just play around with it to see what you're comfortable with. This is what I mean by this being a base tune. You can keep coming back and playing around with the settings until you get that perfect feel for that perfect drift. The higher the angle for the front caster, the more stable your car will be, but you give up responsiveness, and it works the other way round. If you want the car to be more responsive, lower the camber, but the car will be less stable. For anti-roll bars, there is a formula, and the formula works like this. Open bracket A minus B, close bracket C plus B equals X. And what that means is A is the stiffest setting, here it is 65. B is the lowest setting, here it is 1. C is how much weight is on the front of the car, and you can find this out when highlighting your car in the garage. For my upgraded BMW M3 it is 52%, so for the front anti-roll the value would be as follows. 65 minus 1 equals 64. Multiply that by 0.52, percentages are always a decimal, so it would be 0.52, plus 1 equals the value that you need to input for the anti-roll bars for your drift build. For the rear, do exactly the same as the front, but you need to put in the rear weight. So for this car, it would be 0.48. And this same formula gets applied to the front springs and the rear springs. For ride eye, I just recommend going 3 clicks above the lowest height. Rebound stiffness for the front and the rear uses the exact same formula as what we use for the anti-roll bars. Now front bump stiffness, this is where you've got to play around with it once again. Start anywhere between 50% and 75% of that bar and just keep reducing it down until you get the car to respond where you want it. For the BMW M3, I've reduced it all the way down to 4.8, and the same applies to the rear bump stiffness. If you do have the race bumper upgrades, then you can play around with downforce if you want to. It really doesn't make that much of a difference. In my opinion, it probably does for someone else, but to me, I'm really not that fussed. As for braking force, for this one, I want more brakes applied to the back. It's a rear wheel drive car. We're shifting a lot of power to the back, and I want those back brakes to be a little bit more responsive than the front. And by a little bit, I mean 1%. You can play around with this. This is personal preference again. But for this car, I've left it at 51%. Braking force is personal preference. Tune this however you desire. I always go for a higher one between 125% and 145%, just to get the car to handle how I want it to. For differentials, I stick these as high as 95% on both acceleration and deceleration. But this comes with a price. You do get more of an angle, but you are more likely to spin out. So if you do find that you're spinning out and you've played with all the other settings that I said you could play with, come to this one and just slightly reduce your acceleration and deceleration for your differentials. Take it down 3 steps at a time. That is the rule of thumb that I have. If you're going to reduce anything or increase anything, always go by 3 steps. Now onto gearing, which is essential for drifting. When it comes to drifting, you have to find that perfect gear. And that perfect gear is usually 3rd or 4th. There are some cars out there that use 2nd, but for me, I've always found it is 3rd gear. So what I recommend doing before you start tuning your gears is take your car out for a drive, and when you find that perfect gear, have a look to see if it redlines too quickly. If it does redline too quickly, all you need to do is drop this gear down towards speed by 3 steps. And that is it. That is how I've drift tuned my cars that I use for drifting. And as you saw from the intro, I have managed to get into the top 1% on a couple of the drift zones, and I aim to do it on every single drift zone in the game eventually. I am having fun tuning. This is the first time I've ever delved really deep into tuning, and I just went feet first into drifts. Now, if you did find this little guide to tuning helpful at all, drop me a like, I'd really appreciate it. But now, let's just get on with what I did to become better at drifting. First things first, you need to make sure traction control and stability control are turned off. For shifting, you can use manual with clutch, but me, just to make this easier, I'm going to use manual. I know there is a way of clutch kicking, and you can get better drifts by clutch kicking, but that is something I'm going to get used to in the future. For now, I'm going to leave it in manual. The BMW M3 is the best car in my opinion to get used to drifting in. I've learned a lot from using this car, and all you need to do is stick the car in 3rd and just get a feel of how the car reacts when you swing it left and right. It sounds difficult when I'm just spitting it out of my mouth like that, but once you start doing it and once you get the hang of it, it comes relatively naturally. What I'm going to do now is show you the tune for the HOONICORN. For the upgrades, I've kept the car in rear wheel drive, kept the tyres as stock, and for platform and handling, I've either kept it stock or race. If race isn't available, just keep it stock. If it is, then obviously upgrade it to race. So what I'm going to do for the tune right now is I'm going to quickly just scroll through each one. If you want to see the values, I recommend pausing the video wherever you need to. And that is my bass tune for the Hoonigan HOONICORN.
You have arrived at your destination.
Now, I haven't managed to get into the 1% on any drift zone using the HOONICORN just yet. It is capable of getting in the top 5, and once you've got used to this car, you will be 3-starring every single drift zone with ease. And I wanted to show you the HOONICORN because not a lot of you will have the 2006 Formula Drift number 43 Dodge Viper SRT10. So it's not available to everyone, whereas the HOONICORN is. So what I'm going to do now is show you how I've upgraded and tuned this car. And before I continue, I just need to make you aware that if you don't want to mess around tuning these cars and upgrading them yourself, every tune for these 3 cars is available to download, and they are all called Savvy Drifter. Now for the number 43 Dodge Viper SRT10, I swapped out the drivetrain for all-wheel drive, which I know a lot of you are going to say it's not a drift car because it's an all-wheel drive. It will get you in those top 1% on drift zones using all-wheel drive. I've whacked in a single turbo. There is a slight bit of turbo lag with using a single turbo, but it can work to your advantage. I've upgraded the brakes to race brakes, and for the drivetrain, just upgrade everything to race. The front tyres, I've gone with max width. I've gone with 305mm front tyres. For the rear tyres, I recommend 295mm. You can change the rims to whatever you want. It's not going to make that much of a difference. Same goes with the rim size, front and rear. So what I'm going to do for the tune right now is I'm going to quickly just scroll through each one. If you want to see the values, I recommend pausing the video wherever you need to. And this car right here is the best car to 3-star drift zones. And that is it, mateys. I hope you found this drift guide useful. If you did, then flog that like button like a pirate. I have really enjoyed doing this. It's taken me some time, that's why I've not uploaded for the past couple of days. I've been working solely on this just to bring you these bass tunes and help you get 3 stars on all the drift zones here in Forza Horizon 4. I'm Steve the Pirate. Good luck with 3-starring those drift zones. Have an awesome day, have an awesome night. I look forward to seeing you all again real soon. Goodbye.
You have arrived at your destination.